Welcome to StoicInspired. In this video, we will learn why people often complain about life. Lucius Annaeus Seneca, a Roman adherent of Stoicism with a particular interest in ethics, died in 65 CE after an extensive career as a writer and politician. His writings offer an engaging presentation of philosophical ideas and are an important source for earlier Stoic thought. Among Seneca's most characteristic themes are the realignment of action-guiding values through rational reflection, the transformative power of friendship, and the management of destructive impulses and emotions through self-cultivation. Seneca observes that many people make themselves unhappy by being greedy, working hard at unimportant tasks, drinking too much, or being lazy. Others are stressed by seeking power, chasing wealth, or always worrying about what others think of them. Some dedicate themselves to the military, putting themselves and others in danger, while some become slaves to serving powerful people. Many are either obsessed with getting more money or constantly complaining about their own problems. Some people seem to have no clear direction in life and end up dying without ever really living. Seneca's point is that people often let their desires and vices control them, preventing them from finding true contentment and living a meaningful life. He's encouraging us to reflect on our own actions and desires, seeking a more balanced and fulfilled existence. Imagine someone who always wants more. Whether it's money, possessions, or power, they are never satisfied and constantly pursue additional wealth and status, often at the expense of their well-being and contentment. Think of a person who dedicates their life to activities that have no real purpose or meaning, like endlessly rearranging their furniture or obsessively organizing their belongings. They end up feeling frustrated and unfulfilled. Consider someone who uses alcohol as a way to escape from life's challenges. They might drink too much and often find themselves in a fog of laziness and indifference. Envision a person who is always striving for more power and wealth, never finding contentment in what they have. Their pursuit of success is relentless, leading to stress and anxiety. Seneca quote that you have been preoccupied while life hastens on. Meanwhile, death will arrive, and you have no choice in making yourself available for that. 10 top themes from On the Shortness of Life by Seneca. Preoccupied mind. Finally, it is generally agreed that no activity can be successfully pursued by an individual who is preoccupied, not rhetoric or liberal studies, since the mind, when distracted, absorbs nothing deeply, but rejects everything which is, so to speak, crammed into it. Living is the least important activity of the preoccupied man, yet there is nothing which is harder to learn. Just as travelers are beguiled by conversation or reading or some profound meditation, and find they have arrived at their destination before they knew they were approaching it, so it is with this unceasing and extremely fast-moving journey of life, which waking or sleeping we make at the same pace. The preoccupied become aware of it only when it is over. It is the mind which is tranquil and free from care, which can roam through all the stages of its life. The minds of the preoccupied, as if harnessed in a yoke, cannot turn round and look behind them. So their lives vanish into an abyss. And just as it is no use pouring any amount of liquid into a container without a bottom to catch and hold it, so it does not matter how much time we are given if there is nowhere for it to settle. It escapes through the cracks and holes of the mind. Indeed, the state of all who are preoccupied is wretched, but the most wretched are those who are toiling not even at their own preoccupations, but must regulate their sleep by another's, and their walk by another's pace, and obey orders in those freest of all things, loving and hating. If such people want to know how short their lives are, let them reflect how small a portion is their own. Business, ambition, and labor. So it is inevitable that life will be not just very short, but very miserable for those who acquire by great toil what they must keep by greater toil. They achieve what they want laboriously. They possess what they have achieved anxiously, and meanwhile, they take no account of time that will never more return. New preoccupations take the place of the old. Hope excites more hope, and ambition more ambition. They do not look for an end to their misery, but simply change the reason for it. You are winning affection in a job in which it is hard to avoid ill will. But believe me, it is better to understand the balance sheet of one's own life than of the corn trade. 3. Leisure. You will notice that the most powerful and highly stationed men let drop remarks in which they pray for leisure, praise it, and rate it higher than all their blessings. The deified Augustus, to whom the gods granted more than to anyone else, never ceased to pray for rest and to seek a respite from public affairs. Everything he said always reverted to this theme, his hope for leisure. So valuable did leisure seem to him that because he could not enjoy it in actuality, he did so mentally in advance. He longed for leisure, and as his hopes and thoughts dwelt on that, he found relief for his labors. This was the prayer of the man who could grant the prayers of mankind. 4. Learning and philosophy. In this kind of life, you will find much that is worth your study. The love and practice of the virtues, forgetfulness of the passions, the knowledge of how to live and die, and a life of deep tranquility. Of all people, only those are at leisure who make time for philosophy. Only those are really alive. For they not only keep a good watch over their own lifetimes, but they annex every age to theirs. All the years that have passed before them are added to their own. Unless we are very ungrateful, all those distinguished founders of holy creeds were born for us and prepared for us a way of life. By the toil of others, we are led into the presence of things which have been brought from darkness into light. We are excluded from no age, but we have access to them all. And if we are prepared in loftiness of mind to pass beyond the narrow confines of human weakness, there is a long period of time through which we can roam. So the life of the philosopher extends widely. He is not confined by the same boundary as are others. He alone is free from the laws that limit the human race, and all ages serve him as though he were a god. Some time has passed. He grasps it in his recollection. Time is present. He uses it. Time is to come. He anticipates it. This combination of all times into one gives him a long life. 5. Past, present, and future. Can anything be more idiotic than certain people who boast of their foresight? They keep themselves officiously preoccupied in order to improve their lives. They spend their lives in organizing their lives. They direct their purposes with an eye to a distant future. But putting things off is the biggest waste of life. It snatches away each day as it comes and denies us the present by promising the future. The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. You are arranging what lies in fortune's control and abandoning what lies in yours. What are you looking at? To what goal are you straining? The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. Life is divided into 3 periods: past, present, and future. Of these, the present is short, the future is doubtful, the past is certain. But life is very short and anxious for those who forget the past, neglect the present, and fear the future. 6. Wealth and time. People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. Just as when ample and princely wealth falls to a bad owner, it is squandered in a moment. But wealth, however modest, if entrusted to a good custodian, increases with use. So our lifetime extends amply if you manage it properly. Even if all the bright intellects who ever lived were to agree to ponder this one theme, they would never sufficiently express their surprise at this fog in the human mind. Men do not let anyone seize their estates, and if there is the slightest dispute about their boundaries, they rush to stones and arms, but they allow others to encroach on their lives. Why, they themselves even invite in those who will take over their lives. You will find no one willing to share out his money, but to how many does each of us divide up his life? 7. Owning your time. Believe me, it is the sign of a great man, and one who is above human error, not to allow his time to be frittered away. He has the longest possible life, simply because whatever time was available, he devoted entirely to himself. None of it lay fallow and neglected, none of it under another's control. For being an extremely thrifty guardian of his time, he never found anything for which it was worth exchanging. All those who call you to themselves draw you away from yourself. Mark off, I tell you, and review the days of your life. You will see that very few, the useless remnants, have been left to you. Everyone hustles his life along, and is troubled by a longing for the future and weariness of the present. But the man who spends all his time on his own needs, who organizes every day as though it were his last, neither longs for nor fears the next day. For what new pleasures can any hour now bring him? He has tried everything, and enjoyed everything to repletion. For the rest, fortune can dispose as she likes. His life is now secure. Nothing can be taken from this life, and you can only add to it as if giving to a man who is already full and satisfied food, which he does not want but can hold. So you must not think a man has lived long because he has white hair and wrinkles. He has not lived long, just existed long. For suppose you should think that a man had had a long voyage who had been caught in a raging storm as he left harbor, and carried hither and thither, and driven round and round in a circle by the rage of opposing winds. He did not have a long voyage, just a long tossing about. 8. Wasting time. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements, if it were all well invested. Assuredly your lives, even if they last more than 1,000 years, will shrink into the tiniest span. Those vices will swallow up any space of time. The actual time you have, which reason can prolong though it naturally passes quickly, inevitably escapes you rapidly. For you do not grasp it or hold it back, or try to delay that swiftest of all things, but you let it slip away as though it were something superfluous and replaceable. So it is, we are not given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not ill-supplied but wasteful of it. 9. Life ends just when you're ready to live. Most human beings, Paulinus, complain about the meanness of nature because we are born for a brief span of life, and because this spell of time that has been given to us rushes by so swiftly and rapidly that with very few exceptions life ceases for the rest of us, just when we are getting ready for it. So what is the reason for this? You are living as if destined to live forever. Your own frailty never occurs to you. You don't notice how much time has already passed, but squander it as though you had a full and overflowing supply, though all the while that very day which you are devoting to somebody or something may be your last. You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. You will hear many people saying, "When I am 50, I shall retire into leisure. When I am 60, I shall give up public duties." And what guarantee do you have of a longer life? Who will allow your course to proceed as you arrange it? Aren't you ashamed to keep for yourself just the remnants of your life, and to devote to wisdom only that time, which cannot be spent on any business? How late it is to begin really to live just when life must end. How stupid to forget our mortality and put off sensible plans to our 50th and 60th years, aiming to begin life from a point at which few have arrived. But learning how to live takes a whole life, and, which may surprise you more, it takes a whole life to learn how to die. 10. Death. No one will bring back the years. No one will restore you to yourself. Life will follow the path it began to take, and will neither reverse nor check its course. It will cause no commotion to remind you of its swiftness, but glide on quietly. It will not lengthen itself for a king's command or a people's favor. As it started out on its first day, so it will run on, nowhere pausing or turning aside. What will be the outcome? You have been preoccupied while life hastens on. Meanwhile, death will arrive, and you have no choice in making yourself available for that. But when it is wasted in heedless luxury and spent on no good activity, we are forced at last by death's final constraint to realize that it has passed away before we knew it was passing. But for those whose life is far removed from all business, it must be amply long. None of it is frittered away, none of it scattered here and there, none of it committed to fortune, none of it lost through carelessness, none of it wasted on largesse, none of it superfluous. The whole of it, so to speak, is well invested. So, however short, it is fully sufficient, and therefore whenever his last day comes, the wise man will not hesitate to meet death with a firm step. I would like to fasten on someone from the older generation and say to him, I see that you have come to the last stage of human life. You are close upon your 100th year, or even beyond. Come now, hold an audit of your life. Reckon how much of your time has been taken up by a moneylender, how much by a mistress, a patron, a client, quarreling with your wife, punishing your slaves, dashing about the city on your social obligations. Consider also the diseases which we have brought on ourselves, and the time too which has been unused. You will find that you have fewer years than you reckon. Call to mind when you ever had a fixed purpose, how few days have passed as you had planned, when you were ever at your own disposal, when your face wore its natural expression, when your mind was undisturbed. What work you have achieved in such a long life. How many have plundered your life when you were unaware of your losses. How much you have lost through groundless sorrow, foolish joy, greedy desire, the seductions of society. How little of your own was left to you. You will realize that you are dying prematurely.